Marc LoPresti is the chief executive at Market Rebellion here in studio with us. It's always good to see you, Marc. And we had like an immigration conversation earlier, actually this hour, and I said, well, I wanted to talk about the economics of this to some extent, because whatever you think of the politics, there's some impact from immigration enforcement. So now these people who are from South Korea are apparently cutting a deal to go back to South Korea. Okay, then what? Does it hurt our economy? Do American workers get hired in their place? I mean, how do you see this issue?
So, certainly that is the hope and that's the theory right behind a lot of this immigration policy. And if you compare, this is what's interesting to me about this, Connell. If you compare the response from foreign corporations during President Trump's first administration, to which was admittedly not as aggressive enforcement policy as this, but it was certainly aggressive on a comparative basis. To the reaction now, it's totally different. The response in his first administration was protest, lobbying for policy change, rallying against immigration, tough immigration policy in the workforce, in the workplace. Now, as you heard from Hyundai's CEO through their spokesperson, oh, we regret this, we're embarrassed, and we want to put forth as best a foot forward as we can to make sure that we're in compliance.
But companies play politics too, and they know what appeals to Trump.
They do.
Why Tim Cook walks into the Oval Office with that trophy, essentially. I mean, like, a lot of these CEOs are doing this because they've learned a lesson on what makes Trump tick, it would seem to me.
And what lets them walk out with cookies instead of a bonk over the head.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to see how Trump kind of handles this next.
Yeah.
Because he wants the companies to invest here.
He does.
So what does that mean? All right, you're going to invest, you're going to build a plant, okay, but then who are you going to hire to work at the plant?
But at the end of the day, Connell, what are we asking these companies to do? We're asking them to be in compliance with the law.
Yes.
Come operate here, we'll give you benefits, we'll make you part of the Manhattan Project, we'll make you part of all of this economic growth that the president has planned. He's already brought, I think, according to Secretary Lutnick this morning on CNBC, was talking about $7 trillion in investments from foreign companies into the U.S. My number's closer to 3 or 4, but
that's
still.
The Trump administration uses higher numbers on all these issues. That's fine. I would say, well, it's not fine, but it's what it is. It is what it is,
right,
as they say. But I would wonder, and to me it seems, I was talking to economists about it last week, this has to be a net negative in the short term, immigration for the economy, because the more people working here, I mean, it's going to add to our GDP, as opposed to your point, over the long term, maybe it's the right policy, that's a different discussion, but in the short term, does immigration hurt us economically?
Well, there's no doubt, right, and it would be disingenuous to suggest that this immigration policy is not taking some amount of active workers from the workforce.
We might not know exactly how many, but there's something coming out.
Correct, and I think a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle looking at the employment figures we got last week. Last week was jobs, jobs, jobs. Challenger, ADP, BLS, which is, I'm not a big fan of those numbers because of the way they're compiled, all indicated weakness.
Right, so now the Federal Reserve, here in the minute we have left, we should touch on this, is going to start cutting rates, right?
They better, yes.
Well, they will, I would think.
Yes.
And then what? How much?
99% chance of a 25 basis point cut at first FOMC meeting on the 17th. Here's the good news. Futures, the Fed futures tool we use to determine this, is now indicating we will get as much as 75. So they got 3 more meetings before the end of the year, 25 basis points per meeting.
Right.
Some folks are even saying at the last one we might get as much as 50. That's transformative. You bring that cost of capital down, corporations will reinvest.
So people, companies going to start spending, is your point.
That's right.
And maybe start hiring, because it's been slow. Good to see you, Marc.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Marc LoPresti.